Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Twin Peaks. A very interesting episode of Twin Peaks. A very, on multiple levels. Of one, it's the most heavily interpret everything in this episode. I don't think anything was clear cut. If it was, I'm an idiot, like I've said on multiple occasions, so it all went over my head. I'm like, okay. So a lot of it was just kind of I don't know. And also not, very little dialogue in this episode, except for, the beginning and certain things being said here and there. It's, very little dialogue in this entire episode. There's large segments of the episode where there is no dialogue whatsoever. Now, what I'm pulling from this whole situation is, basically, because goes the 1945, there's an explosion, maybe they're testing out weapons or something, then it skips to 1956. So I'm guessing they're trying to say, this whole situation, this whole thing, to me, the whole thing is the whole thing derives from a good versus evil type of situation. A white lodge, a black lodge, that evil has always existed. There's always been people there to fight it. So it's I've always kind of, I don't know. It's really hard to say because I guess in my mind it is that I've always thought everything that's happened within the confines of the series of Twin Peaks is just an isolated incident in a great long battle of good versus evil in some shape or form. And I'm guessing this is kind of alluding to that more. Of the fact of the matter is, this didn't just start with things happening like Laura Palmer's murder. Things have been in motion for years, for a long ass time. Granted, time works differently within the lodge than it does. Or does it exactly work the same? They did push Cooper out of there exactly 25 years later. So it's I don't know. Because there's multiple things about this. Because obviously we get I guess the whole thing. At first I was are we getting to because we're going closer to the explosion and then we go inside the explosion. So I'm are we going to a subatomic level? Is it supposed to be kind of oh yeah, everything is connected, even on the smallest parts? This is still connected to that everything is connected. This world, the Black Lodge, even the smallest atoms, everything is intertwined together or in some shape or form. Then there's even one point during now that diving deeper that you see this gray blob kind of barf, not blob, but a person barfing, and then you see all these little bubble things, and one of them is a black bubble and it has Bob's face, which earlier obviously Ray ended up shooting Cooper because it's yeah, there's a price on your head anyway, so it's I'm gonna get a lot of money for it. Obviously Doppelganger Cooper was trying to shoot him first but got shot instead, but then all these shadowy people show up. They're kind of elusive and everything, and they start touching him, and then his stomach opens up a little bit and there's that black ball kind of, and it has Bob's face on it. So it's immediately my brain's are they supposed to be like Bob, whatever they are, this evil from the Black Lodge? Is that what those things are too? And they were there because it's because obviously Doppelganger Cooper is just a vessel to harbor Bob. Because what I'm thinking, my brain immediately goes is this not just about Bob? Is this about everything that's like Bob that exists within the Black Lodge? Is this about giving them life here on this world? Maybe that's why they need Bob to stay alive. That's why Bob's doing everything that he's doing. Because we don't know what it is, but he needed something from Ray. Because we know that Daria, I completely forgot her name until he brought it up this episode. It's that's right, Daria, which I should have known because of the TV show Daria, but nevertheless, because of that whole situation, he's oh, I hope you understand about that. It's oh yeah, so where is Daria? Oh yeah, she's waiting for a phone call. Obviously we know he already killed Daria back in the first episode. Ray doesn't know that, sadly. So I'm guessing it's a situation of obviously he's only keeping Ray alive long enough because it's I need something from you. Also, it's that whole thing on his phone. It says C fire, and it's DX or something. It looks there's three, I don't know whether those were messages or codes or something. Every time he pressed one, it disappeared. Don't know. Maybe that was his lock screen. Like I said, I walked away from this episode not understanding jack shit. Like I said, it seems so much of this episode was you figure it out. I was figure what out? I thought I was confused before, but I walked away from this episode being this entire episode was wait, what? Then there's a whole situation of the giant, and there's that lady. Once again, kind of going back a little bit, I've always interpreted that whole situation of being in the Black Lodge because that's where Cooper is going. Which at the same time is like, it's never really been answered. Like, obviously the waiting room is tied to the Black Lodge. Is it like a waiting room for both the Black Lodge and the White Lodge? Which we've never really tackled or even bothered with the White Lodge. It's always just been the Black Lodge. So I'm like, I don't know. Even though, like, I guess, like, the White Lodge is kind of, like, beyond. It's kind of its own thing. So it's, like, it's hard to say because it's, like, isn't the White Lodge supposed to be where all the good is, but yet so many people are mixed up with the Black Lodge? I mean, is the waiting, because I've always, and I've constantly brought that up, too. It's, like, I've always interpreted the waiting room as part of the Black Lodge, but is it just, like, is it kind of like like, between life and death, is it, like, the literal kind of purgatory? Is that what it's supposed to be, like, waiting to decide what the hell happens to you or whatever? Like, obviously we see that the waiting room is connected to all these different worlds. Are they, like, is it specifically tied to just the Black Lodge, or are there other worlds? Like, what, like, obviously when we saw Cooper kind of falling through all those worlds earlier in the season and all these different places it's showing us, is that what that is? And so, because it seemed like the giant was a good guy, but it's like, why is he and the dude in the red suit from the original series, as well as Laura, why they tied to this specifically? Because, like I said, it's always interpreted as like, this is evil. And so it's like, I don't know. There's so much I don't know and don't understand. And so immediately my brain's also like, what's up with those alarms? I guess those alarms are kind of supposed to show that whole situation with Bob. Like, because the fact is the giant is looking at it. So, like, the fact is that it's 1945 on Earth, at least at that time when they were seeing that. Like, so does it mean it was 1945 in the lodge, or does time not exist within the lodge? Maybe to its inhabitants, it does. But, like, in the confines of it, it's not like you, like, maybe for Dale Cooper, it feels like he was just sitting there the entire time, but then he kind of unfroze after 25 years. So maybe it's something like that where time is moving, but you don't recognize it or feel it. So was that supposed to be the giant, like, present day, having that whole situation happen, him and that other lady, and the alarms going off? Like I said, I think the alarms had to be about Bob, and they see, like, they kind of rewatch what we saw, like, oh, like the Bob bubble, and it's kind of like, okay, so the giant floats up in the air, starts spewing this gold dust or whatever, and then it forms a spear, and inside that spear is like a, Laura Palmer's face, and it's like, wait, what? And they use some device to send it, and it goes through the screen, and it goes to Earth. So, like I said, it would seem like this was set in 1945 at the very least. So, like I said, is it supposed to be a situation where we're kind of tackling destiny, that things were always meant to play out like this, that Laura was supposed to be the light to kind of start this whole thing, that maybe this whole thing in Twin Peaks is actually like the end all be all, like, it's like, this is the climactic battle of good versus evil type of thing, or not. I don't know where this fit in this whole thing. Maybe I'm like totally full of shit, and it's like, this isn't some like grandiose battle. It's just like a one-off incident of crazy and weirdness. No reason to get too deep in it. But I feel like there's so many. You dive into the original show and even to this, like, there's so many layers to things. I mean, maybe by the time we reach the end, by the time it's all said and done, you're like, yeah, you overthought so much. It meant this, clear cut and simple, or maybe there is layers to this whole situation, like that. It might seem like a one-off incident, that everything here, because we already know that the Bookhouse Boys existed for the sake of like protecting Twin Peaks, the woods, because there was some evil out there. Granted, Harry wasn't all that like, oh yeah, like when the Bob situation came up, Cooper's like very weird way of approaching cases and stuff like that. Obviously, like, Harry had his reservations, but obviously it seems like someone knows something. So maybe, like, because that place we see at, like, during those time periods, in particular that town or that gas station and stuff like that, immediately my brain goes, is that supposed to be, like, because there was even, like, a restaurant. So I was like, is that supposed to be Twin Peaks years, like, decades ago? Is that what that's supposed to be? Or is that just some small town? Because I was waiting for that dude or that girl to say their names. I didn't catch them. So I was like, is that supposed to be someone significant that we know present day or something like that? So it's like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that has nothing to do with Twin Peaks. Maybe it does. But like all those shadowy people, like, like the dude shows up and he kills that lady, squishing her head. The other dude, he does the same thing, digging his hands deeper into the back of his head, blood splattering everywhere. And he's saying this message, and it's making all these people pass out. There's this little girl that passes out, and then like a bug enters her mouth, and it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Is it supposed to be like, oh, we're poisoning her, like all her descendants will be poisoned by this, or like, what is that supposed to mean? Is that maybe some kind of protection from what's to come, or like, was that on purpose? Because it only showed it happening to a little girl. It didn't show it happen to anyone. We saw 2 other adults go to sleep, but I mean, maybe it's supposed to be interpreted as like, oh, that also happened to them too. Like I said, I don't know. There is so much to this episode that is just left up to interpretation. I mean, we also have Cooper waking up Doppelganger Cooper waking up at the end, so he is okay. Question is like, what is it that he wanted from Ray? What is it that he needed from Ray? And like, what, like I said, to me, it seems like making this stay permanent, and maybe possibly maybe it is to make the Black Lodge and this world combine into one, making it a permanent thing. Not like they cross over every once in a while, but make it a permanent thing. That's why those things are so elusive and everything. Like, they kind of fade in and kind of fade out of reality because they don't have a permanent foothold in our world. But that dude who killed them had enough of a foothold to kill him, but then kind of faded away. So I guess if the motivation and I guess if the conditions are right, you can stay. I don't. No, I mean, because even Bob himself kind of popped in and out when he originally gave him the Twin Peaks and stuff like that. Anytime we saw Bob and stuff, he'd pop in, kind of scare you a little bit, and then leave, unless he had possessed a person's body and stuff like that. So, but the thing I was also going to say was maybe the whole like Laura's light heading to Earth, maybe it's a situation because of the whole time thing. Maybe it's like we're sending it now, but it won't get there until later. Maybe that's something actually meant to help the real Dale Cooper, like the light will come find him, and it was like, no, like things are getting bad, like maybe this is like, oh, it's happening, whatever Bob is doing, it's almost done, we need to wake Cooper up now. So that's what that light's supposed to represent. I don't know, because I guess because the thing is, like, Laura's character itself was very complicated because she had a light to her, but at the same time, she had a heavy darkness to her that she didn't like, that she found disgusting about herself. And she felt like she kind of infected other people with it and stuff like that. A darkness that would kind of swallow you and anyone else around her whole. So it's like, I mean, what does that mean? Is that like, maybe that's supposed to be like the light that goes to, like, I'm thinking maybe that little girl is actually, like, immediately my brain is like, maybe that's actually Laura's mom younger, and maybe that was her mom in Leland when they were younger, or maybe it's not, but maybe maybe that's that's Laura's grandparents or something like that, and it's supposed to trickle down, like maybe the light gets to the little girl and eventually it passes down to Laura and it stays with Laura, and that's why she needed to be taken out, because like she had this light in her and it would eventually screw up all all these people, like Bob and all his other people, like their future plans or something like that. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. Like I said, I am probably so full of shit, but that's immediately where my mind goes. Like I said, this episode was literally nothing but like, interpret what you think this means. So I've thrown out my interpretations. I'd love to kind of get yours too. Like, what the hell do you think it all means? Because like I said, all this took place in the past too. Like, only the fraction at the beginning actually took place like present day. So also, does that mean that the Doppelganger Cooper can't die? But then there's a whole situation of like, one of you is going to die, but maybe it's because they came to his aid and stuff like that. But it's like, how did they come to his aid and everything like that? Why did they come to his aid? I mean, well, I've kind of already explained the why, but like, how did they do it? Like, how did they help him? Like, is it Bob inside of him helping keep him alive? Or maybe did they remove, because the fact is it was coming out. So was that, them doing something to Bob to kind of push him back in, like pulling Bob out a little bit, doing something to it, and then putting him back into Cooper to heal the body? Or maybe that means Doppelganger Cooper is no longer alive, that he's 100% dead, and now Bob has fully taken control of the body. Bob's no longer like in reserve, that this is all supposed to represent Bob is fully awakened, he's back, he's been sleeping this time, but now he's full blown back, and things are about to get very chaotic. I don't know, like I'll leave it at that. Do note, there is no episode next week. It will be coming back the week after next. So we will have to wait, to pick up possibly where this. I mean, the fact is that they went from like 45 to 56 makes me think there's even more to that. Like, there's definitely going to be like probably messing around with maybe the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and stuff like that until we work our way back up to present day. Or maybe it's just like, nope, these are isolated things that will play a part, hopefully, not just like, I mean, with the way Twin Peaks is, I don't think anything's ever done by accident. I think everything is done specifically because it's like, you don't know it now, but this will play into the story in some shape or form. And then it's like, it's probably most likely going to be a situation of once I get to the end, I'm like, okay, wait, what? Then going back, rewatching everything, I'm like, okay, the pieces are now making sense. I understand what this meant this much later on. I mean, I'm just assuming, and hopefully, so, I mean, like I said, I don't know how I feel. The episode just left me befuddled. That's all I can say. So, but like, once again, no episode next week. New episode the week after next. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.